The door that should have stayed closed. I hadn't eaten in 2 days. My stomach folded in on itself, growling like a wild thing trapped in my ribs. The city was empty at midnight, a wasteland of flickering streetlights and broken promises. I wandered those streets with nothing in my pockets but a handful of desperation, praying the night might take pity on me. Then I saw it, a Five Guys outlet, dark, closed, its sign buzzing faintly in the distance like a dying star. I told myself to keep walking, but the smell of grease and cooked meat clung to the air like a ghost. I was so hungry that my morals felt like paper burning in my hands. That's when I heard it. Thud, thud, would striking concrete, again and again, from behind the restaurant. Curiosity, or maybe hunger, pushed me forward. The back alley was narrow and slick with rainwater, the dumpsters casting long, crooked shadows. The noise came from the back door, swinging open and shut with the wind. Someone had forgotten to lock it. I stood there, arguing with myself, the word trespassing echoing in my mind. But when you're starving, morality feels like a luxury. I stepped inside. The kitchen still smelled alive, grease, onion, beef. The griddle radiated faint warmth, like it remembered its last shift. I found a burger wrapped in foil and a jar of chocolate milkshake in the fridge. Cold, old, maybe forgotten, but it was a feast to me. I tore into it, the taste flooding my mouth like salvation. For a few minutes, I was human again, not a ghost haunting the city. Then I heard it. A sound that didn't belong, a muffled whimper, faint but unmistakably human. It came from behind a metal door at the far end of the kitchen, marked storage. Every instinct screamed to leave, but I was drawn toward it like a moth toward flame. My hand trembled as I gripped the handle. The door creaked open, releasing a breath of cold air that smelled like metal and sweat. The storage room was mostly dark, except for a single dangling bulb that swung slowly above a man tied to a chair. Duct tape across his mouth. His shirt soaked in blood and tears. His eyes, wide, pleading, met mine. Before I could move, a giggle echoed in the shadows. Then, 2 figures stepped into the light. They were women dressed as nurses, but not the kind you'd find in a hospital. Their white uniforms were smeared with red stains that might have been fake, except for the smell of iron that filled the room. One had short hair and carried a baseball bat. The other had wild curls and held a chainsaw like a child cradling a toy. The short-haired one began recording with her phone, smiling sweetly. The other twirled the chainsaw as if performing on stage. "Ah, don't cry," the curly-haired one said. "We haven't even started yet." The man struggled in his chair, muffled screams escaping the tape. The one with the bat leaned in, whispering something into his ear. Whatever she said made him cry harder. The curly-haired nurse laughed, waving the chainsaw an inch from his trembling face. "Shoo, don't fight it. I've put plenty of patients to sleep. You'll be no different." "Scream for the camera," the other sang. My pulse thundered in my ears. I stumbled back, praying they wouldn't hear me. But the door behind me creaked, just once, just enough. The noise sliced through the silence. Both women froze. The curly-haired one tilted her head, eyes searching the darkness. Then she smiled, a slow, unnatural stretch that made my stomach drop. "Look," she whispered. "A new patient." I didn't wait to see what came next. I bolted through the kitchen, slipping on grease, crashing into chairs, bursting into the night. The air outside was cold enough to cut, but I didn't stop. I ran until my lungs burned and the world blurred. Hours later, at the police station, I told them everything. The tied-up man, the nurses, the chainsaw, the camera. They searched the restaurant. Found nothing. No blood. No tape. No forced entry. No sign anyone had ever been there. They looked at me like I was crazy. But I know what I saw. That was a week ago. Now I can't sleep. I keep seeing them, in reflections, in crowds, in dreams that don't feel like dreams. Last night, a note slid under my motel door. No envelope, just red ink on white paper. "Patients don't leave without saying goodbye." I'm not paranoid. I'm terrified. Because somewhere out there, the nurses are still watching. And this time, they know my face. The clown who liked his meat rare. They always say your gut knows before your mind does. That night, mine knew something was wrong. The sound of oil popping in the fryer echoed through the quiet restaurant, the smell of beef and salt clinging to my skin. It was nearly midnight, closing time, and I was exhausted. The storm outside painted the streets with long streaks of water, turning the glass doors into black mirrors. My coworker, Louise, was finishing up the last of the cleaning, humming softly to himself. I just wanted to clock out, go home, and sleep through another lonely night. That's when I heard the front door creak open. At first, I thought maybe a customer had forgotten their wallet. "Sorry, we're closed," I called out, turning toward the register. But the footsteps didn't stop. They grew heavier, dragging across the tiled floor, echoing between the fryers. "Louise," I whispered. He stood frozen, mop still in his hands, staring toward the entrance. His face had gone pale, drained of all color. When I followed his gaze, I saw him. The man who walked in wasn't a man anymore. He was a clown. He wore a filthy, grease-stained jumpsuit, patched together with duct tape and torn fabric. His painted grin was cracked and peeling, showing teeth the color of old butter. Red circles smeared across his cheeks like dried blood. He carried a rusted crowbar, dragging it along the floor so that it scraped, shrieked, and sang in the silence. "I hear the fries here are to die for," he rasped, voice like sandpaper against steel. Louise reached for his phone, but the clown lifted the crowbar in a lazy arc. "What? You don't like clowns?" He grinned wider. "Don't we make you laugh?" The air felt thick, like the entire building was holding its breath. He sauntered deeper inside, stepping behind the counter as if he owned the place. "Let's play a little game," he said, tapping the crowbar on the countertop. "Hide and shriek. Think of it as employee engagement." Louise and I exchanged terrified glances. The only exit was the emergency door, but it had been jammed for months. I wanted to run, scream, anything, but my body wouldn't move. I could only watch as the clown rummaged through drawers, pulling out spatulas, ketchup bottles, even a raw beef patty, like he was assembling tools for some sick ritual. "Do you enjoy games?" he asked me, eyes wide and glinting. "There are cameras here," I said, my voice barely steady. "The cops will find you." He laughed, a horrible, wheezing sound that twisted my insides. "Sweetheart," he said, "if the cops caught me for what I've done, I'd already be sitting in the chair getting electrocuted." He mimed the motion, tongue flicking out, eyes rolling back. "Electric." The crowbar scraped against the tile again as he turned toward Louise. "You got any meat back there? I've got a craving for something rare, maybe a spleen burger. Eyeball sliders." Louise tried to back away, but the clown cornered him, swinging the crowbar idly like a metronome of madness. "You think flipping burgers makes you part of the system?" he hissed. "You're the meat. I'm here to clean the gears." Then, in one swift motion, he grabbed Louise by the collar and dragged him toward the kitchen. I froze, every instinct screamed to help, but fear had me by the throat. I ducked behind the freezer door, praying he wouldn't hear my heartbeat. From the shadows, I saw it all. The clown danced circles around Louise, spinning the crowbar like a baton. "Round one," he yelled. "Who can scream the loudest?" Louise begged, crying for mercy. The clown's laughter echoed through the metal walls. "You scream like a pork chop in a pressure cooker, Louie boy." Then came a sickening crunch. And another. And another. Silence followed, broken only by my own trembling breath. I slammed my hand against the silent alarm button under the prep table and crawled behind a stack of boxes. I could hear the clown's boots squelch across the greasy floor. "Jamie," he whispered, "where's my little blondie? I promise I'll make it quick." I pressed my back against the wall, praying he couldn't hear me. But then, through the thin gap between the boxes, two eyes stared back at me. He smiled. "One little hider shaking in a crate. 2 bloody hands soon to seal your fate. 3 seconds left. Want to run? Too late. I squeezed my eyes shut, bracing for the blow, but then, distant sirens cut through the night. Red and blue light flashed against the windows. I opened my eyes. The clown was gone. Vanished like smoke. When the police pulled me out, they found Louise's body broken, lifeless. His blood painted across the tiles. But the cameras? Out of order. Again. I told them what I saw, every detail. They said clowns like that change disguises, that this one might never be found. Maybe next time, he'd come as someone else. But that night, I swore I saw something. On the door to the walk-in freezer, written in ketchup, maybe blood, were 3 words, scrawled in childish handwriting. Patients don't leave. She came back for her shift. I wasn't supposed to be there that night. Lori had called in sick, but management texted me at the last minute. Tomorrow, can you cover? I sighed, stared at the rain hammering my window, and said yes. I wish I hadn't. By the time I pulled into the Five Guys parking lot, the storm was roaring. The wind whipped against the glass doors, rattling them in their frames. Puddles glimmered beneath the flickering lights, reflecting streaks of red from the neon sign. Inside, the restaurant was quiet, too quiet. Only the hum of the refrigerators and the buzz of fluorescent lights kept me company. Gina, my coworker, was at the register, yawning. "Rough night to be working, huh?" she said. I forced a tired laugh. "Yeah. Let's just close and go home." But the night had other plans. By 9:30 we'd mopped, wiped, and scrubbed everything that needed cleaning. Gina was at the back, locking the side door, when she froze. Her reflection caught something in the window, a figure standing just outside, drenched from head to toe. Lightning flashed, and the shape became clear. It was Lori. Her uniform clung to her like a second skin, soaked through. Her hair was plastered to her face, and her lips, God, her lips, were stretched into a smile too wide, too forced. I felt my breath hitch. "Lori," Gina whispered. You came back?" Lori stepped inside without answering. Her shoes squelched on the wet floor, leaving faint, reddish puddles behind. "Car broke down nearby," she said softly. "Figured I'd finish my shift." Her voice was off. It sounded flat, hollow, as if it came from somewhere deep underground. I wanted to believe her, to smile and nod, but something about the way she moved made my skin crawl. Every motion was jerky, unnatural, like her limbs weren't quite connected right. "You okay?" I asked. She tilted her head slightly. "Never better," she said, smiling wider. "Feels like all my problems are gone." Her wet hair hung down like strings of ink, dripping onto the tiles. But then I noticed, the water wasn't dripping anymore. The puddles beneath her feet didn't spread, they just disappeared, absorbed by the floor. My heart started racing. "Lori," Gina said nervously, "you're scaring us." That's when the lights flickered. Once, twice, then shattered all at once, plunging the restaurant into darkness. The sound of glass falling echoed through the room, followed by a low hum, like the building itself was breathing. "Sorry for being late," Lori whispered. Lightning flashed again, lighting up the kitchen in blinding white. And there she was, standing right in front of me. But she wasn't human anymore. Her skin was pale as paper, stretched tight over her bones. Her eyes were hollow sockets filled with faint blue light, glowing like dead TV screens. Her mouth twisted into a broken grin, the corners tearing slightly as she spoke. "I had an accident," she said. "Blood in my lungs. Glass in my skin. And no one came." The air grew heavy, pressing against my chest. My ears rang. "You didn't cover for me," she rasped. "I covered for myself." Behind her, the fryer turned on by itself, sizzling empty air. The smell of burning oil filled the room. Shadows crawled along the walls like hands reaching for us. "Tamara," Gina whispered, "what's happening?" I couldn't speak. Lori's head snapped sideways with a sickening crack. "I died on that road," she screamed. "And none of you heard me." The storm outside answered her, thunder splitting the sky. The windows shook violently, and then one of them burst open, shards of glass slicing through the air. The rain poured in like the sea breaking through a dam. I stumbled backward, clutching the counter for balance. Laurie's body flickered, solid, then transparent, then solid again. She reached for me with long, blackened fingers. "You didn't hear me scream," she whispered. "But I heard you laugh." I bolted for the door, slipping on the slick floor, crashing into tables. My hand fumbled with the lock. It wouldn't budge, until finally it gave way and I fell into the storm outside. The rain hit like needles. I ran, barefoot, down the parking lot, heart slamming against my ribs. Lightning lit up the lot, and that's when I saw it. At the far edge of the property sat a wrecked car, half hidden by the rain. Steam hissed from the crushed hood. The windshield was shattered, the airbags deflated. I approached slowly, my breath visible in the cold. Inside the car sat Laurie. Her real body. Her uniform was soaked in dried blood, her face mangled, her head split open. One eye was missing. Her remaining eye stared straight ahead, lifeless. A tremor crawled through my spine. Then, her head moved. Slowly. It turned toward me with a crack, and the ruined lips stretched into that same horrific grin. Blood trickled down her chin as she whispered, voice faint but clear through the storm. "I told you I'd finish my shift." I screamed, stumbling back into the rain. The world spun. Lightning struck again, and when it faded, the car was empty. The door hung open. The seat was soaked, but there was no body. I ran until my voice broke, until the storm swallowed me whole. When the police arrived later, they found nothing. No car. No blood. No trace of Laurie at all. But when they reviewed the restaurant's security footage, they found one clip, 30 seconds long, recorded exactly at midnight. The camera flickered and then focused on the front counter. There was no one behind it. Only a message written across the counter in something dark and thick. "Patients don't leave." And just below it, in smaller letters, "See you on your next shift."